today's world, you sit around and try to figure out solving problems. And, like for example, there's kids that only have one cell phone and one video game. It's a shame that there's these poor kids out there that only have these few things, right, Quinn? It's terrible. Would you believe that there's puppies and cats and full-grown dogs that don't have sweaters to wear in the winter? I don't know how they do that. The Kansas City Chiefs haven't won the Super Bowl in 49 years. It makes me so mad I could just kick somebody. Just kick them. But there is a problem, telling a good bedtime story to some people, to kids, They hear once upon a time and they're just bored to death, right? So, that was a real problem we had to figure out how to solve. And so, I've been working on it a little bit, and so it's kind of how you tell the story. You got to change it up a little bit, So, I think everybody needs to be comfortable, get comfortable, right? But if we started and said once upon a time, everybody would just fall asleep and get bored with once upon a time. So, take for instance the story of Cinderella. If we were to call Cinderella Rindercella instead, you'd pay a little more attention. You wouldn't feel like you've heard it before.
Get sued too.
Yeah. So we'll start and tell Rindercella instead of Cinderella. So, once upon a time in a corn country. You with me, Eli? All right. Once upon a time in a corn country, there lived a beautiful girl. And this beautiful girl's name was Rindercella. But Rindercella, she lived with her mugly other and two sad blisters. And in this same corn country, there lived a very pransome hench. And this pransome hench, he was going to throw a fancy fall. So he invited people from miles around, especially the pitch people. You gotta invite the pitch people if you're going to throw a fancy fall, Grandma. Right? Yep. Yep. Grandma knows. So, you see, the mugly other and two sad blisters weren't very nice to Rindercella. They made Rindercella do things like fleep the sores. They made her wean the clindas. They even made her trub the scoilet. Of mean stuff. Right, Wyatt? No one wants to do that stuff, huh? So, because of this fancy fall, the mugly other and two sad blisters, they went into town to get a drancy fest. But Rindercella couldn't go. She had to stay home and clean. Well, the day of the fancy fall arrived, and Rindercella couldn't go. All she had to wear was some old ruddy dags. She just cat down and tried.
She cat down and tried.
She cat right down there and tried. Right down there. And while she was a kid in there shrine, appeared before her Gary Modfather. And Quinn, don't ask me why. And if you see the Gary Modfather, don't ever tell him I told you this. But he was wearing a tink poo-poo. The tink poo-poo, like the ballerina dancers wear. So the Gary Modfather shows up with his tink poo-poo, and he grabs his magic wand and waves it around, and bang! Poof! Right there in front of him, there's a kid boach in Hicks White Sources, to carry her to the fancy fall. Well, Gary Modfather says to Rindercella before she leaves, says, Rindercella, you be home before midnight, or I'll turn you into a tumpkin. So, Rindercella, she paid attention. Well, she went on to the fancy fall, and she got to the front door, and when she did, there was a prancing hench. And he was there because he knew what was going on, because he'd been watching from the wooden hinda down there. He was watching all night from that wooden hinda. And, Rindercella and the prancing hench, they go on in this fancy fall, and they manced all day. Sometimes, he would even dance like this. He would do, sometimes he'd do one of these. And sometimes she would dance like that.
She would dance like that.
And with all that good dancing, you can imagine they lay in fun, right? They lay in fun. Well, Rindercella knew it was getting a little late, and so she asked the prancing hens what time it was, and he grabbed his rocket potch, and he looked, and it was almost midnight. Well, just about then, the mid-clock struck 9. Rindercella, she staced down the rares, and just before she beached the rottum, she slopped her dripper. She did. She slopped her dripper. Just one of them. Slopped her dripper just before she beached the rottum. Tanner. You did. That's bad. Well, Prancing Hens, he picked it up, and the next day he went all over the corn country looking for the beautiful burl who had slopped her dripper. Well, finally, they made it to Rindercella's house, Grandma. And so, you know, they tried it on the mugly other, and it fit and did. And Gene, they tried it on the 2 sad blisters. It fit and did.
My luck.
I know. And Dean, tried it on Rindercella.
And it fit.
It fit did. It fit did. That's right. It was exactly the sight rise. Yep. Well, so they lived together, got married, and lived happily ever afters. And, well, now ladies, the story of the Maury is, if you go to a Bancy Fall and you want to prance some hens to lull and fub with you, don't forget to slop your dipper. Oh yeah.